Good morning. The training outline that I'm going to share today is about a very pertinent issue to workplaces in America today. What I researched and am presenting is on VESA, Victims Economic Safety and Security Act, which is a policy in Illinois for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, but is also present in 20 different states in the United States. So this is information that can be taken across the country. And I would assume that the remaining states will have similar policies in the very near future. The outline was divided into three sections. First, the prior to the training, what needs to be done. Second, the actual training. And third, the follow-up. Prior to the training, Human Resources needs to develop a workplace safety policy for domestic violence and sexual assault victims. There also needs to be forms completed that will be utilized by supervisors when one of the staff actually uses the leave policy. And also, the standards need to be in place in the personnel training file so that there's consistency across the country, the company. VESA posters need to be posted by each time clock prior to the date of the training. And after completion of the training, all supervisors will inform their employees of this policy during their next scheduled team meeting. And in the future, all new hires will be informed of the policy during their orientation. The learning objectives for this training will be that the department supervisors will first be able to identify the protective individuals by this policy. They will gain understanding of how domestic violence may impact the workplace, recognize victims of domestic violence rights in the workplace and in the state of Illinois, understand the provisions that VESA, the Victims Economic Safety and Security Act, has on the impact that it may have on their scheduling in their departments, and what documents the employee is required to share with the workplace and supervisor. We'll start this training with a classroom activity. There will be a scenario that will be read, and the attending supervisors will break up into groups of two. During the training, one person will assume the role of the victim, the other will assume the role of the supervisor, and they will work through the topics that will be given to them in the scenario. The reason why I'm doing that is because I think that domestic violence is one of those topics that's very difficult for people to understand the significance of, and utilizing the scenario, they may be able to gain a little bit more understanding and a little bit more comfort. It will also be it'll also be told at the beginning of the program that if anyone is having any personal experiences with domestic violence or sexual assault, they have the right to excuse themselves, and this presentation and this training can be done individually with them. They will need to notify their direct supervisor of why they needed to leave the presentation. The intended time for that activity will be 15 minutes. Who is intended to attend this training would be, it's mandatory for all HR personnel and department supervisors. Now, the training, which I came up with, is multifaceted. It will take approximately 45 minutes total, and that will include time for questions and answers. The next part is the training will be divided into, first would be the introduction, which will just be a little bit of why we're here. It is because it's a new policy, not new. It's been in existence since 2003, but a lot of workplaces are not aware of the total amount of impact it can have on the workplace. And so it's something that this agency is going to be taking serious from here on out. The statistics on the prevalence of domestic violence is many. It will be talking about the fact that 1 in 4 women, 1 in 7 men at some point in their life will be victimized in a relationship. And an incident of domestic violence occurs every 9 seconds in the United States. These two statistics relate to the gravity of the problem and why we are going to help our employees be safer. The impact on the workplace is with domestic violence and sexual assault is many. It's estimated that the financial costs of domestic violence are upwards of $8 billion a year in lost workplace productivity and in healthcare costs. In this day and age, we're trying to save money. This is a very easy way to implement some savings and also making the workplace safer for everyone involved. The person being victimized is also oftentimes done at their workplace also. Examples of way that the workplace can be affected include stalking, obsessive calling and texting, and increased absences due to injury and isolative tactics of the abuser. 50% of women killed at work are so by a partner or an ex-partner. And 20 states currently have similar laws protecting victims, and it is believed that they will promote safety for both the victim and the workplace by adopting these policies. The VESA components are very straightforward. It was an Illinois law since 2003. It pertains to businesses with over 50 employees. It pertains to employees are those having a family member, household, or themselves a victim of domestic violence and or sexual assault. Eligible for up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave in a calendar year. Now, the victim employee can use their accumulated time off, but it is not mandatory. I'm sorry. They have to have, if the workplace requires it, and we are going to do that, they have to have some type of provide documentation of the situation. The documentation may be provided, might be from the police report, a court order, such as an order of protection, the physician, our domestic violence, and our sexual assault agency. The request must be made 48 hours ahead of when the leave will begin, unless doing so puts the employee at greater risk of harm or it's not practical. So if someone goes into shelter tonight, they do not have to let you know 2 days before that they're going to do that. They have to notify you after of why they weren't able to come into work. Leave time can be used for the time off. It can be used, the time away from work in that 12 weeks can be time to go to shelter, counseling, going to court for orders of protection and legal proceedings against the abuse, psychological trauma support, medical care, and relocating or other victim services provisions. Employer that cannot, to any eligible employee who is requesting this time off, the employer cannot reduce the time that the work is that the employee is able to work, their scheduled hours. They cannot terminate them, and they just cannot discriminate against them in any other way. Employees can take the unpaid leave, but they are, as I said before, are able to use their vacation or sick time if it is desired and available. Employer needs to maintain the employee's group health insurance if it was active at the time of the request. Posters have to be displayed next to the time clock or whatever general meeting area if you do not use a time clock. Information about the act and process needs to be a part of the employee hire and mentioned in all new orientations. And complaints need to be, if there are complaints against the agency, they need to be filed with the Illinois Department of Labor. The information for the contact is on the posters that are being posted. Follow-up after training will be supervisor will ensure monthly that the appropriate displaying posters are visible in their work sites. Supervisors will notify Human Resources immediately if and when an employee requests leave under the Victims Economic Safety and Security Act. Metrics will need to be designed and maintained on the number of employees that have received the training and the number of training hours that has been instituted. Also, numbers will also have to be kept and put in a matrix about the number of employees that have taken the time off due to the act versus how many, and including all how many days, hours, and weeks were taken by the employee. Information for this training was gathered from Futures Without Violence, which is www.endabuse.org. The Annals of Epidemiology. In April of 16, they put out a article about workplace homicides among United States women, the rise of intimate partner violence, and also the Victims Economic Safety and Security Act through Illinois.gov. Thank you.